Well, I think at the moment voters don't fully understand, certainly ones that supported the policies regarding economics, regarding tariffs in particular of this administration, and how, and they don't understand necessarily how it's going to impact their wallets quite yet. So there's this period where there's a disconnect between understanding of what tariffs will actually do, which is not just drive costs up, but make certain products more limited, potentially lead to job losses in any of the supply chains that are connected to any of the issues surrounding the tariffs or the products. And so they don't necessarily understand that. But the reality is, when the Trump administration, when Trump talks about taking money back, getting American money back from trading partners. It's far more complicated than that for two reasons. One is that even the amount from the 2018 tariffs, or tariffs in general related to the whole budget of America, is less than 2%. So whatever you may claw back, we are talking about a very minor part of the budget. But separate to that, what it creates is this whole sort of chaotic set of uncertainties which impact the market, which impact prices, which create the volatility that we're seeing right now in the markets, and ultimately for people's pocketbooks, because companies, and we saw this with factory orders going off a cliff in the latest numbers, and that's just before these tariffs have taken place. That's just on the anticipation of what might happen when they take place. Once money starts being taken away from certain products, once product change have to change, that's when they are going to feel things. And companies can't plan for that, so they stop doing anything. So growth stops.
There's some really smart people in the administration. Scott Pezant, Howard Lutnick, Mr. Lutnick and that. These are smart people who understand Wall Street and understand economics. I would never take that away from any of these people. Why are they not damping down some of this further for tariffs? Why are they not acting as the grown-ups in the room?
That's really interesting, because on Sunday, both of them in independent places, both Lutnick and also Pezant said, alluded to the fact that Mexico and Canada had done enough with respect to cross-border demands from Trump to somewhat potentially, they didn't say this in words, but alluded to perhaps not get up to the 25% in tariffs. So they're thinking one thing, and they're trying to sort of tame perhaps what they're hearing versus what they want to have happen. But then on the other hand, we see that Trump does act very independently from even his senior secretaries. And so that creates, again, uncertainty in the White House, uncertainty here.
Money talks for Trump. He's transactional. We all know about the art of the deal, although apparently the author of the art of the deal, who have ghostwritten him, is now disowning this book, but that's another issue. But he understands what sponsors say to him. He understands what Wall Street does as well. Surely Trump realises that if the money is not being invested, if people are getting scared, if people are losing money, whether it be on Wall Street or whether it be in their 401ks, surely that's a big catalyst for him.
It should be, and they are. I think hard to know what's inside his mind, but it seems like he is really going full thrust on the power element, the American ego element, if you will, of tariffs, and how this is going to make people obey. He considers them punishments for other countries, when in fact, again, if you look at the numbers, they're punishments for the world, and they're certainly punishments, as we're seeing for 401ks and for corporations in the United States. I don't know that he thinks the markets would have been this negative. We did see in 2018 the markets closed the year negative in the first year of tariffs. Of course, the Fed came in and dropped rates by 100 or so basis points as well towards the end of into 2019. So tried to temper that as growth slowed. We're going to see that now. And he's going to have to come to terms with growth is going to slow, prices are going to increase, and tariffs aren't going to feed the till of the United States Treasury.
The Fed to do what he wants them to do if prices increase. Karen is in Barcelona and she's got a question for you, Nomi.
Nomi, I wanted to ask you about some of the market expectations, because it feels like investors have been hopeful that we do have a transactional president, that we will see some sort of negotiation deals done. Even last night, Goldman Sachs was not ruling out a last-minute pause in the tariffs coming into effect. So there have been hopes pinned on the fact that we could see this kicked out into the long grass and some sort of negotiation. That's simply not happening today. So where does it leave the US Federal Reserve in terms of rate reductions, holding or even hiking from here, if we're talking about, as Goldman Sachs says, core prices in the US will go up by 0.6%?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because I believe the Fed's going to have to pivot to looking at declining growth more than they are looking at increasing inflation. So though prices will increase as supply chain tariffs take effect for the United States, within the United States, around the world, and that will put pressure on prices. That will increase inflation. It is also contributing and will contribute continually to lower growth in the United States because, again, decisions aren't being made on the basis of growth rates are still relatively high, and there is so much uncertainty with respect to tariffs and everything else that's coming from the administration. So I believe that the Fed's going to have to examine negative growth and lower growth coming in, examine a potential period of a recession on the growth side, even with higher prices. And I think it's going to have to step in, and it's going to have to decrease rates by more than the 50 basis points that they put on the table at the end of last year to balance that out.